Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this Christmas holiday horror movie review video as part of my December 2022 series, where I take a look at several Christmas holiday related horror movies. So today, I mentioned at the beginning of this series that I was going to do watch two movies and review them off of Shudder. Movies that I don't have a physical copy of. I did the first one, the first review video, which was the Advent Calendar, which is currently streaming on Shudder. Today, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the second movie streaming on Shudder, and that is going to be "To All a Good Night" from 1980. So yeah, this is a movie also streaming on Shudder. It's a slasher movie, Christmas related slasher movie during that time where there were so many slasher movies. It was kind of at the boom of the slasher craze. So yeah, it's all a good night. I also have an announcement to make at the end of this video too, but we'll go ahead and review this movie first. An announcement related to this series. So To All a Good Night's a 1980 American slasher film directed by David Hess, who of course was is an actor most notably in Last House on the Left and others as well. Its plot follows a group of female finishing school students and their boyfriends being murdered during a Christmas party by a psychopath dressed as Santa Claus. And actually, I think this is the first movie where there was a killer Santa Claus as you know, the villain. Because I believe Christmas Evil came out the same year, but I believe this might have come out before that. It certainly came out before Silent Night, Deadly Night, which came out 4 years later. But I believe this also preceded Christmas Evil, which is kind of a different movie in general, anyway. Um, so basically, it opens during Christmas vacation at the rural Calvin Finishing School for Girls. A student is killed when she is accidentally pushed over a balcony during a prank. 2 years later, on the Friday before Christmas, the school is emptying out for the holiday. However, five students, Nancy, Melody, Leah, Tricia, and Sam, decide for various reasons to remain at the school, planning to have a weekend get together with their respective boyfriends. That night, while the remaining girls have dinner, their classmate Cynthia and her boyfriend are murdered outside the school by an assailant with a hunting knife. The others, meanwhile, coerce the innocent Nancy into giving their house mother, Mrs. Jensen, milk laced with sedatives to make her fall asleep. After she falls asleep, the girls go to a nearby airstrip to meet their boyfriends, TJ, Alex, Tom, and Blake, who have flown in on a private plane. At the house, the group sits in the living room and talks. Tricia goes to the kitchen to retrieve beer, but is confronted by someone in a Santa Claus suit and mask who slits her throat. When Tricia does not return, Tom goes to find her. He is confronted by the killer, who chases him outside and smashes his head with a rock. The killer buries each body in the school's garden. So that's the setup and the premise for To All a Good Night from 1980. As far as the cast goes, we have Jennifer Runyon as Nancy, Forrest Swanson as Alex, Linda Gentile as Melody, William Lauer as TJ, Judith Bridges as Leah, Buck West as Ralph Kramer, Shamshak as Polanski, Angela Bath as Tricia, and Denise Stearns as Sam. So yeah, that's the setup, the premise, and the cast for "To All a Good Night," the 1980 American slasher film directed by David Hess. This movie, it's not great. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen. Not even the worst slasher movie, perhaps. But it's just very generic, very by the numbers, paint by numbers slasher movie. So let's just go ahead and get into my review, starting with the pros or the positives, the things I liked about the movie. So it does have some pretty decent Christmas slash holiday atmosphere. You get some lights, some Christmas lights, Christmas trees, and of course a killer who's dressed in a Santa Claus suit. So there's no mistaking the time of the year that this movie takes place, and it is a movie that you would watch during this time of the year. So I give it props for that. It is a true Christmas holiday. It has some pretty decent Christmas holiday atmosphere and vibes going on. Not the most of all the Christmas horror movies, but not the least either. So there's a lot of kills in this movie. A lot of people get killed. There's some decent blood and gore in the movie. Not an overabundance of it, but there's a little bit on screen, at least for a few seconds. I thought the makeup effects are pretty good, considering this is another very low budget slasher movie. So you kind of have to keep that in mind. But given that, I thought the gore effects, the makeup effects were pretty good. I really like the title for this Christmas horror movie, "To All a Good Night," because not only is it like a saying that goes around along Christmas, part of a Christmas song and just Christmas expression, saying "'Twas the night before Christmas, tall a good night" and all that. But for in a horror context, it also works well. And so I was thinking about that as I was watching this movie. That the title for the movie is one of the best things about it, which I don't know if that's a compliment or a rip on it, but "Tall a good night." It's kind of like saying nighty night. You're not waking up again to the victims, and so I just wanted to make mention of that. They really did a good job with the title. Um, it makes for an effective hook and an interesting idea to the movie. I thought the look of the Santa Claus killer was pretty creepy and effective for the most part. It's a Santa Claus outfit, and they're wearing like a plastic or rubber mask, which was kind of creepy in its way. So I give it some credit there. Well, this movie doesn't have a lot of depth to it. It's a pretty simple premise and idea. It is fun. It is a fun and interesting slasher movie that delivers for the most part, especially in terms of the kills and the carnage and sort of the who done it narrative that you get in a lot of slasher movies during this time. So from those aspects, I thought it was good, not great. It has plenty of gratuitous sex and nudity for any of you out there that are looking for that in your slasher movie. That was another thing that went around at the time. Many of those early slasher movies definitely had that to get the male butts in the seats, basically. So, yeah, I wouldn't say this movie has the most, but it definitely has nudity and gratuitous sex talk and stuff. I did sort of like the little throw off twist and the confrontation at the end of the movie. I thought it was an effective final fight with the ending image as well as a certain character dancing and humming. It just kind of left the movie on a very creepy note, a very effective creepy note in that regard. But yeah, they throw a little twist in once it's revealed who the Santa Claus killer is. There's a little added twist to that, which was probably a good thing because frankly, I thought it was kind of obvious who the Santa Claus killer was, at least the initial one. So I give them props for that. So those are my pros or the good things about To All a Good Night. As far as getting into some cons for this movie, most of it's related to the characters and just a first time director. Most of the characters in this movie are very one note, very cliche characters with no unique or separating characteristics that allows us as a viewer to really care about them that much. Anything they have to say or whether they're killed or not. It's just, and I know you could say that about a lot of slasher movies, especially during that time, but this one particularly is definitely one of the worst in terms of the characters and just the way they're written, the way they're acted, just that kind of everything about it is just terrible. Terrible set of characters here that are very cliched and one note. The acting and the writing are pretty rough, piggybacking on that point. Really unremarkable dialogue between the characters, very wooden and robotic, which says more about the acting of most of these young girls and guys. Um, Really, the only actress or actor that I knew in this movie was Jennifer Runyon as Nancy, and I only know her really from the beginning of Ghostbusters from 1984. And she's your typical innocent virgin final girl that doesn't really say more than three or four words or sentences throughout the whole movie, and somehow manages to survive. I don't know. The acting's pretty bad in this movie, and like I said, only to be met with the writing and how bad that is. The premise of the movie is really not all that unique or creative either. This movie really borrows from movies that came before it or while it was out, which like Prom Night comes to mind watching this movie, especially the beginning of Prom Night, if you know what I mean. Black Christmas certainly, and Friday the 13th is the most obvious one. Very cliche and just kind of forgettable. That's the biggest thing about this movie is a slasher goes, there's just nothing about this movie that separates itself. That's interesting or scary or even tension filled. Um, David Hess just doesn't really do a good job directing this movie by the fact that it's not scary. He doesn't really build up tension all that well. He tries during a couple of scenes, but not very effectively so. Of course, the characters make a lot of dumb decisions, even for a slasher movie, questioning if they are, especially like midway through the movie when people are missing and there's actual bodies, like dead bodies, and characters are questioning if they're really in that much danger, despite the fact that characters are missing and people having been murdered. It's like, really, really, wow, really. And like I said, the movie just has no personality to it. There's no real atmosphere or any or personality. I think is the best way to say it to this movie. It's a classic paint by numbers, cliched slasher movie that doesn't separate itself really by anything. That makes it interesting or engaging. And like I said before, my final point is the killer, the first killer, I'll say, was kind of obvious. There's no real mystery there for the whodunit aspect of the movie. Now, another pro I forgot to add that I will add is I did enjoy the setting of this movie. The setting's pretty good for a slasher movie, being in this sort of rural um, college for girls. Uh, this finishing school for students. It's kind of secluded out in the middle of nowhere, and this the school is huge. It's almost more like a mansion. So there was a lot they could do with that, and they did for an okay part. But so that's another pro. So as you can see, this is a very mixed movie. To all a good night. I wouldn't rush out to buy it, in part because when I went to look for it, a lot of the copies that I see are foreign copies. And the only ones that I see that are like for the United States that would play on most Blu-ray players or DVD players are like $50. I wouldn't pay more than $5 for this movie, frankly. I'll be happy to watch it again on Shudder if it's still on there next Christmas. But this is a movie I wouldn't necessarily rush out to go buy. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 on terms of a rating scale. It's okay. It's a Christmas slasher movie, but not a very good one. Just like I said, very paint by numbers. No separating uniqueness to it or anything like that. So 6 out of 10 for To All a Good Night from 1980. So go ahead and comment down below if you guys have seen To All a Good Night. It's currently streaming on Shudder, as is the Advent Calendar. So if you want to watch either of those two movies that I reviewed as part of this series, check them out. But yeah, this one is not great. So 6 out of 10. Go ahead and comment down below. Like I said, if you guys have seen it, what you thought of it. Do you like it more or less? Why not? Please like this video and hit the little notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews for this series. And please be sure to subscribe to my channel as well so you don't miss any of my great horror content, not just the rest of this series, but like the first 3, 4 months of 2023 that I already have planned out. So, final announcement with all that being said, I've decided to change up the end of this series a little bit. Since I'm talking about Christmas slash holiday horror movies, I realized that I actually have a couple of New Year's holiday movies. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove. I was going to have Frozen be sort of my winter horror movie, which of course I'm still going to watch and review on my channel. But I think I'm going to push it down the road with some other like snow winter movies. And instead, I'm going to review once my Christmas movies are done and we get up to Christmas, there's going to be a couple of reviews after Christmas and before New Year's. One is going to be New Year's Evil, which I have the Scream Factory edition, and then the other one's going to be Terror Train, which I have a Blu-ray of that. Both are considered to be New Year's horror movies. So I'm going to add those. So it's going to be 8 plus 2 instead of 8 plus 1. And I'm going to take Frozen out of it and add those two New Year's movies. So there are 10 movies in all for the month of December. So it'll truly be a Christmas holiday horror series. So just wanted to throw that little tidbit out there. Hope everybody's doing well, having a good holiday season, and stay scared. Bye.